My father introduced me to my sister's fiancé the same way he'd been introducing me my whole life, as an afterthought. "And this," he said, gesturing vaguely in my direction, while already turning back toward the living room, "is Laura. She works for the government. Something federal. Something federal. 22 years. That's how long I'd been doing something federal. And standing there in my parents' kitchen in Oakville, still in my dress uniform because I'd driven straight from a briefing in Ottawa, I watched my father put his arm around Marcus Webb, my sister's fiancé, a man I'd never met, and steer him toward the bar cart like I was furniture. Marcus paused. I noticed it before anyone else did. The slight hesitation in his step. The way his eyes dropped to my collar, then to my epaulets, then back up to my face. Just for a second. Less than a second. Then he smiled at my father's joke about the hockey game and kept walking. I poured myself a glass of water and pretended not to notice my mother watching me from across the island to see how I'd react. I should explain the house. My parents' home in Oakville is the kind of place that tells you everything you need to know about what they value. 4 bedrooms, finished basement, double garage, mature trees in the backyard. My father, Gerald, retired from running a mid-size plumbing supply company in Burlington. My mother, Diane, does charity work and hosts the Neighborhood Association's annual fundraiser. They are not unkind people. I want to be clear about that. They are not villains. They are simply people who decided, sometime around when I was 14, that I was the difficult one. My sister's name is Vanessa. She's 3 years younger than me, and she is, genuinely wonderful, warm, funny. The kind of person who remembers your coffee order and texts you articles she thinks you'd like. I love her. That part is not complicated. What is complicated is that our parents have always treated us as though we were running different races entirely. Vanessa in the main event, me in some minor qualifying heat they had to sit through out of obligation. Vanessa went to Western. Business. She came back to the GTA, got a job at a marketing firm in Mississauga, met Marcus at a friend's cottage weekend in Muskoka. Our parents were thrilled in the specific way parents are thrilled when a child does exactly what they hoped. She was nearby. She called on Sundays. She brought wine to dinner and asked my father questions about the company even after he'd sold it. I joined the Canadian Armed Forces at 19. Not because I had something to prove. That's not how it felt from the inside anyway. It felt like purpose. It felt like a door opening into a room I hadn't known existed but immediately recognized. Basic training in St. Jean. RMC. Then years of work I can't fully describe at family dinners, which my father took as confirmation that I was being evasive, which he took as further evidence that I'd always been difficult. I missed Vanessa's graduation. I missed Christmas twice. I missed my father's retirement party because I was in a situation that I cannot specify, in a location I cannot name, doing work that the people in that Oakville living room will never have any reason to know about. "You chose this," my father said once, and he wasn't wrong. But there's a version of choosing that costs you something, and I think he genuinely never understood that I'd paid a price. He just saw the absence. By the time Vanessa called to tell me she was engaged, I'd been promoted to brigadier general. I didn't tell them that part on the phone. The engagement dinner was Diane's idea. A proper family gathering, not just a restaurant. She spent 2 weeks planning the menu. Vanessa sent me a photo of the centerpiece she and my mother had made together. Little mason jars with sprigs of dried wildflowers. The kind of thing that takes an afternoon and fills a house with quiet laughter. I looked at that photo for a long time. I flew in from Ottawa on a Friday. I'd been in meetings since 6 that morning and hadn't had time to change, so I arrived in uniform. Cadpat dress, ribbons, rank insignia. My mother opened the door and her face did the thing it always does. A kind of effortful brightness, like she was deciding in real time to be fine with it. "You look very official," she said. That's the word she uses. Official. Not impressive, not proud, not "oh, sweetheart, look at you," official. Like I was a bylaw inspector who'd shown up to her dinner party. I hugged her and said the food smelled incredible. Which it did, because my mother is an exceptional cook, and I meant it. Inside, my father was in the living room with Marcus. I could hear them. Marcus was saying something about the leaf season, and my father was laughing the real laugh, not the polite one. I stood in the hallway for a moment and just listened. My father's real laugh. I couldn't actually remember the last time I'd heard it directed at something I'd said. Vanessa came around the corner from the kitchen and grabbed my hands. "You're here," she said, like it was a relief. Like she'd been quietly worried I wouldn't make it. "I'm here," I said. She looked at my uniform and touched one of the ribbons lightly, the way she sometimes did when we were kids and I'd show her my cadet medals. She didn't know what any of them meant and she'd never pretended to. I always loved her for that, for the honest not knowing, as opposed to the performance of interest. "You look incredible," she said. "Come meet Marcus." He was taller than I expected. Early 40s, easy smile, the particular kind of stillness in the way he held himself that I recognized before I could name it. My father made the introduction the way I described, the vague gesture, the dismissive half-sentence, and Marcus shook my hand with both of his. Then he took one step back, just one step, and he came to attention. It wasn't showy, he didn't make a production of it. His shoulders squared, his chin lifted, and he said, "General, it's an honor." The room went quiet. Not the dramatic movie silence where everyone gasps and glasses fall. Just the specific quiet of a room where several people suddenly understand that they've been missing context. My father's expression didn't change immediately. It took about 3 seconds. I watched it happen, the smile still there from the hockey conversation, then a kind of slowing, then a look at me that I had never seen from him before, not in 43 years. "I'm sorry," he said. Marcus turned to him politely, the way you'd correct a slight misunderstanding at a board meeting. "Your daughter is Brigadier General Laura Ashford, sir. I saw her at the Joint Operations Conference in Kingston last year." She gave the address. He looked back at me. "I've been hoping to properly introduce myself since then, actually," he said. "The work your unit did on the Northern Sovereignty file, it mattered. It mattered a lot." I said, "Thank you, Major Webb," because I'd figured it out by then, the way he held himself, the particular quality of the stillness. The handshake, JTF2 I'd find out later. A decade of operations across 3 continents, decorated twice, recently transitioned out. The man my father had just described as my sister's fiancé, like that was the most interesting thing about him, had a service record that would have made most of the officers in my building go quiet. My father said, "Brig, I'm sorry, what?" Vanessa was standing by the kitchen doorway with both hands over her mouth. Her eyes were bright. I realized she'd known. She'd known the whole time and hadn't said a word, and I felt in that moment a rush of love for my sister so specific and so sudden that I had to look at the floor. "You never told us," my mother said, not accusatory, just stunned. "You never asked," I said. Not unkindly. It was just the truth, and I think we both knew it. Dinner was strange in the way that dinners are strange when the furniture in a room has been rearranged and everyone is pretending they always knew it looked better this way. My father asked Marcus about JTF2. He asked carefully, the way you ask about something when you realize you should have been asking about it for a long time. Marcus answered graciously, deflecting where he needed to and sharing where he could, and I watched my father listen in a way I recognized from his business days. Actively, with his full attention, the way he listened to people he respected. At one point my father looked at me and said, "The Northern Sovereignty file. That was in the news last winter." "The Arctic stuff, adjacent to it," I said. "Were you?" He stopped. "Were you involved in that, adjacent?" I said again. He nodded slowly. He looked at his plate. He cut a piece of roast and didn't eat it. My mother asked Marcus how he and Vanessa had met, and the conversation moved where it needed to move. And I ate my dinner and listened to my sister laugh and thought about the 14-year-old version of myself who used to sit at this table and feel like she was orbiting a planet she didn't belong on. After dinner, when Vanessa and my mother were doing dishes and Marcus had gone out to the back deck for some air, my father found me in the hallway by the coat closet. I was looking at the framed photos. The wall of family pictures that my mother updates every few years like a living document. I was in 6 of them. Vanessa was in all of them. "Laura," my father said. I turned around. He was holding his wine glass with both hands, which is something he does when he's thinking carefully about what to say. He was a man who'd built a company from scratch, who'd negotiated contracts and managed people and made hard calls. He was not generally at a loss for words. He was at a loss for words. "I didn't know," he said finally. "I know you didn't. You could have told us." I looked at him for a moment. I thought about all the Sunday calls I'd made from bases in places I couldn't name. The ones where he'd ask how the government job was going. And I'd say fine, and we'd talk about the weather in Burlington. I thought about my mother's word, official. I thought about the 14-year gap in my section of the photo wall. "You could have asked," I said again, gently this time. He looked at the photos. He looked at the one from my commissioning ceremony. I was 23, in my uniform, standing very straight, and my parents were on either side of me and everyone was smiling. It looked like a happy photo. It was a happy day. That part had been real. "I'm proud of you," he said. "I need you to know that." I believed him. That was the hardest part. I believed him, and it still hurt, because pride that only surfaces when you understand the metric doesn't feel quite the same as pride that was always there. "Thank you, Dad," I said. And I meant it. Imperfectly, with all its complications, I meant it. Marcus found me on the back deck about an hour later. The backyard in October, The maple my father planted in 1987 had gone full orange, and the air had that particular Lake Ontario edge to it, damp and cold and somehow still. "I hope that wasn't too much," he said. "I didn't plan to do it quite like that." "You saw the shoulder boards and reacted," I said. 30-second habit, he said. 11 years. "It's not exactly a switch you turn off, no," I said. "It isn't." We stood there for a moment, two people who had spent significant portions of their adult lives doing things that are hard to explain at family dinners. "She talks about you," he said. "Vanessa. A lot, actually. She says you've always been the strongest person she knows." I looked at the maple tree. "She also says she wishes she understood your world better," he said. "She wishes you'd let her in." I thought about that, about how I'd constructed the distance too. Not just them, not just the absences and the vague explanations. Me too. The habit of not explaining. The assumption that they wouldn't get it, wouldn't care enough to get it, so why start? "She should come to Kingston sometime," I said. "I'll give her the tour." Marcus smiled. "She'd love that." Inside, through the glass door, I could see Vanessa drying a dish and saying something that made my mother laugh. Not the effortful brightness, the real one. "She's going to be good for your family," I said. "I think you are too," he said, "if you let yourself." I drove back to Ottawa on Sunday morning. The 4:01 was clear, that specific Sunday morning emptiness before the world wakes up, and I had 4 hours to think. I thought about the photo wall. I thought about something federal. I thought about my father's face when Marcus stepped back and came to attention. The 3-second delay before his understanding caught up. The expression I had never seen in 43 years. And I thought about what Vanessa had said to me that morning, standing on the driveway in her socks while I loaded my bag into the rental car. "I'm glad you came," she said. "I'm glad I came too." "Do you know what Dad did after you went to bed?" I looked at her. "He went to that wall," she said, "and he stood in front of your commissioning photo for like 10 minutes. Mom found him there." She paused. "He was crying." I didn't know what to do with that. I'm still not sure I do. But somewhere on the 401 east of Mississauga, with the lake going gray to my right and the sky going pale ahead of me, I thought, this is not the end of a story. This is, maybe, the long overdue start of one. The kind that takes patience and repetition, and the willingness to let someone see you clearly, even when you've spent a career learning how not to be seen. My father is not a bad man. He is a man who failed to ask, and I am a woman who failed to answer. And there is a photograph of us both smiling at my commissioning that tells a part of the truth. Marcus Webb proposed to my sister at a cabin near Huntsville in September, and she said yes before he finished the sentence. They're planning the wedding for next June. My mother has already put a save the date on the fridge. I've already blocked the weekend. That's the other thing they don't tell you about a life like mine. The leaving is the easy part. The staying, the showing up, the letting a room full of people see your shoulder boards and understand that the absence was never indifference. That takes more courage than most of the rest of it.